Audrey, Audrey, wake up, called Jewel's voice. Audrey woke with a start and fluttered her eyes open to see Jewel next to her shaking her arm. She was back in the dark attic wearing her Hello Kitty pajamas again. It had only been a dream. What is it, Jewel? She asked sleepily, but disappointed. Look at the window, whispered Jewel. Audrey glanced over at the moonlit window, and to her amazement, a tiny winged fairy was standing on top of the mantel, holding a little purple bag with a stitch of a white tooth on it, looking around the attic. Audrey and Jewel stared at the little fairy looking around the attic. From what Audrey could see, she was actually quite pretty. She was about the same height as a new wooden pencil. Her face was perfectly symmetrical. Not a single spot or freckle was to be seen on her tiny face. Her small round cheeks were a coral pink, noticeable but just perfect for her face and complexion. Her lips were a dark palatinate or a dark shade of pale violet. Her chocolatey brown hair was put up in a perfect bun, hidden behind a glistening white tiara that had jewels on the spikes, shaped like little teeth. Besides her little purple bag with the white tooth on the front, swung around her right shoulder, her outfit was delighting. Her shoes were tiny light violet heels that made a clip-clop sound when she delicately walked across the mantel. She had on a poofy light violet dress that was just above her ankles. It looked like it was made of silk. It was smooth and velvety. It was the perfect dress to twirl in around as it was flowing and swishing gracefully around her small legs. Her entire dress was covered in little sparkle rainbow dust that glistened in the moonlight. On the back of her dress, her wings stuck out. They were the most stunning things Audrey had ever seen. They looked as if all the happiness in the world was carried by them, and whenever the Tooth Fairy flew around the planet, she would flutter her magical wings, and happiness and delight would flutter around the world. The Tooth Fairy's wings were made of a soft shade of lilac with the same rainbow dust sparkles covering them. They fluttered like butterflies' wings. They were so amazing. She looked just like a ballerina, but she was the Tooth Fairy. She was graceful and delicate. Audrey and Jewel kept on staring at the fairy and back at each other. Both girls were so shocked that the actual Tooth Fairy was standing in Audrey's attic. Audrey leaned in over to Jewel. You can see her too, right? She whispered. Yes, Jewel breathed. I can't believe it. The Tooth Fairy continued to look around the room, her violet eyes shimmering. What is she doing? Audrey asked. I think she's searching for your tooth, replied Jewel. And just as Jewel said this, the Tooth Fairy had grabbed her little bag and her wings began to flutter, rising her off the ground and taking her towards Audrey's pillow where her tooth was. The Tooth Fairy floated down next to the pillow and picked up Audrey's little tooth and gently placing it in her purple bag. Her wings began to flutter again, taking her back to the mantel. Once she reached the window, she pulled out a small piece of paper out of her bag and studied it. Her shimmering violet eyes were darting around the paper very quickly. Audrey and Jewel exchanged confused looks. One of us should go over to her, said Jewel quietly. Audrey looked at the Tooth Fairy and back at Jewel. I don't know. We don't want to scare her off. But Audrey, it's the Tooth Fairy. I'm sure nobody else has ever seen her before. She is so secretive, but we're seeing her. This is like a once-in-a-lifetime witness. Audrey sighed. She couldn't argue with that statement, plus Jewel was always very convincing. Okay, she whispered, but who's going over to her? I think it should be you, because it was your tooth, and I know how much you've been wanting to experience something magical like this. You go. Audrey took a deep breath and carefully tiptoed over to the Tooth Fairy so she wouldn't frighten off this amazing experience.